Welcome to another episode of the PG podcast. So I have a question. Have you ever been in a situation where it was so socially awkward that you did not know how to recover? When I was younger, and this has been one of the worst memories of my life, I totally embarrassed myself on stage. I was singing at a competition, and when I was leaving the stage, I couldn't find the exit off the stage, so I just squeezed myself through a little hole in the curtains. I tell the story all the time because it's mortifying for me. Now, looking back on that, there are other ways I could have handled a very socially awkward situation. It was awkward. There were about 1,000 teenagers there, and they all laughed at me. And even up to this day, 3 decades after that incident, I'm still a little frazzled by it. And now I would handle it very, very differently. Today we're going to talk about how to not be socially awkward. Do you consider yourself socially awkward? Are you the one that goes to the party and hugs the drink like it's your lifeline? Let me give you another example. In today's society, socially awkward people hide behind their phones. 100% of the time, they're probably just scrolling through TikTok and Instagram, but when they're in a situation where they don't want to talk to somebody, their eyes down into the phone. So the phone has become the new drink. So long ago, when you went to a party, you grabbed a cup and you held onto that cup like it was a dying man's rope. Now the phone is the dying man's rope. If you are that person and you do not know how to put your phone away in social situations, you might be socially awkward. So today I'm going to give you 4 quick tips to get rid of social anxiety and awkwardness. So one of the girls in my church asked me a question. She said, Pastor, last weekend while you were at that conference talking to your preacher friends, I wanted to say goodbye, but I didn't know how to interrupt your conversation graciously. So I stood there for a moment. Truth be told, I sat there talking to my friends and saw her standing there awkwardly and wondered once or twice what she was doing. I didn't know if she wanted to be in the conversation, or it didn't occur to me that she was trying to say goodbye because she said nothing. So the first thing I want to teach you or give you a tip about is how do you enter and exit a conversation graciously. It's a lost art, and a lot of people don't know how to excuse themselves from a conversation or how to enter a conversation that they weren't in from the beginning. If you have that issue, then I want to give you a few tips that might help you. First of all, figure out if that is a personal conversation or not. If the 2 people or 3 who are speaking are very close, leaned in together, their heads are towards each other, their eyes are very focused on what each other is saying, it's probably not a good time to interrupt with something that's not extremely important. However, if they're in that social spacing, if everybody's laughing, talking, or even having conversation where there's no laughter, but you can tell it's an equal exchange, then you could easily enter a conversation like that with a simple, excuse me, or a simple, hey girls, I was wondering, and enter in with your own input on whatever the topic was if you heard what they were talking about. But my number one best way to enter a conversation in which you didn't start or you weren't there at the beginning is to have a friend that's already there. If you got into that social environment with a friend, then it is an automatic open invitation to be in a conversation that friend is in. For instance, you and your girl go to a birthday party and you don't know anyone. When she is speaking to someone, it is not outside of your liberty to go stand next to her and allow her to introduce you. Hopefully your friend is that kind of person. So how should this young lady have responded in that situation where she wanted to say goodbye? All she had to do was say, excuse me, Pastor, or excuse me, ladies, I just wanted to say we're leaving and it was so good to be here with all of you. Nobody would have felt awkward for anything or, thought she was weird. But if she just stood there going, now that makes everyone feel a little bit awkward. So never be afraid to say especially if you're leaving and it's good manners to say goodbye. Excuse me, guys, I just wanted to say we're leaving and I just enjoyed the day with you, or I wanted to say goodbye. That's a really, really gracious way to exit a conversation, and a really good way to enter it is say, oh, I've heard so much about you, or I love that gold sweater. It is just perfect for the color of your skin. A compliment or something that's genuinely complimentary is a great way to introduce yourself to a topic or to a person. Secondly, to avoid being socially awkward is to realize that people are just people. I see this the most in the teenagers today. For instance, I went to this conference with my niece, and she instantly, like within 10 seconds, made 100 friends, and they're like besties right now. But on the airplane ride back, she had a very difficult time connecting with the teenager who was sitting next to her in the airplane. What was the difference? The difference was the environment she was in. The person who was sitting next to her had headphones on. Headphones are a surefire way, earphones, to say, I do not want to be disturbed. I do not want to have a conversation with you. And now more than ever, everybody walks around with their AirPods in, their earbuds, so you don't know whether or not they want to engage in conversation. If you want someone to talk to you, take your headphones off. Put them around your neck. Take them off, especially, if you want to be left alone, by all means, keep them in. But sometimes you think you want to be left alone, and you really don't. Because a new friend is always a great opportunity. You never know if this person turns out to be the bridesmaid in your wedding. You never know if this person turns out to be a lifelong friend. And so many of us miss so many relationships because we're too timid to speak to people. A third recommendation or piece of advice for not being socially awkward is to respect people's personal space. Now, people who know me say I'm a hugger, right? And that's because they know me. I have hugged strangers before, especially in my capacity as a pastor. Sometimes I will hug someone on our first meeting when they come to my church or something like that. But generally, I don't hug people on the first meeting. It feels that way because that's my personality. That's how I am. But I've learned to respect people's space, especially when I can tell from across the room that they are not instinctively touchy-feely people. So that is important, that you don't go in for the hug just because that's how you are. Especially when you reach out to hug somebody, you feel that stiffening up of their body, release them immediately. The worst thing you can do is to make someone uncomfortable the first time they meet you, right? However, what can definitely replace a hug is eye contact. I am a great proponent of eye contact. I have spoken about it a million times because it's so important. There's nothing as wonderful as having the undivided attention of someone you like. And so when someone is speaking to you and you look into their eyes, now you don't want to do the death stare because that's also awkward. You want to blink, you want to look casually. Now and then you want to show in your eyes that you're paying attention to what people are saying. You communicate with your eyes, and that is so important when you are trying not to be socially awkward. Now, before I give you the last tip, some things go without saying. Especially in Western culture, smelling good is a big deal. I know. Why am I putting this in here? Because it is important if you're trying not to be socially awkward to make sure that your body odor is not offensive. You brushed your teeth today. You generally are, not repulsive, and it's not difficult to be in your company on a very natural level. And I don't think I needed to say that because generally as Americans and as women, we bathe every day, we shower every day and things like that. But I've been in situations where just somebody just, I guess, less cared themselves or didn't have an awareness that they had this particular issue, and it becomes awkward. Not that I don't want to be in your presence if you don't smell great or if you have body odor, it's not that, but it's awkward because you think, I wonder if this person knows this. I wonder if other people are put off by this. And so it's very important. If you are not sure, ask your friend, am I smelling okay? And I'm conscious of that, especially because when I minister to people, sometimes I'm very in close proximity to their face. I make sure that my breath is fresh, and I floss, and I brush my teeth, and I chew gum or have mint sometimes. So those are things that help alleviate social awkwardness, but just general good hygiene. It's good advice. Just, make sure that you're smelling okay. One of my favorite tips about alleviating social awkwardness is masterfully done by my nephew. I'll give you an example. So this is Xavier, and he was on the pulpit the other day. I think he thought he was going to do the connection card, and it just so happened that somebody else was doing it, but there he was. He landed on stage. Now, I, in his position, might not have known at his age how to handle that situation, and I've seen a lot of people do it badly, but Xavier has an uncanny ability, a natural knack for just laughing at himself sometimes. It is so endearing, and it just make sure that an awkward situation does not feel awkward. People aren't going to talk about it for the rest of their life. But then I've seen other people, for instance, thought they were called to the pulpit, were not called, got so embarrassed, spent the whole night fretting over it, so it became a thing. So one way to alleviate social awkwardness is listen to this is golden, acknowledge the awkwardness. Make sure they know that you know and you're okay with it. So have you ever, for instance, tried to give somebody a high five and they just left you hanging? Like you're like, woohoo! And so you pull your hand away and you're hoping nobody saw, and you're trying to save face. Everybody saw, right? And because you are so embarrassed, it makes the situation even more awkward. But if you say, bro, you just left me hanging. And then they're like, ooh, sorry, situation done. You see the difference? You see how by acknowledging the social awkwardness of the situation, by calling it out, by referring to it immediately and showing that I'm not embarrassed by it, but I could be, then you have just diffused the whole awkwardness for yourself. It's okay to laugh at yourself and be okay with, looking stupid sometimes. Have you ever been to a place where you spill something on yourself, and then for the rest of the night you thought everybody was staring at it, so you keep wiping at it, you throw Sprite on it, you squeeze your lemon on it, whatever. And just those actions make sure everybody notices it when nobody would have seen it if you just cleaned it once and forgot about it. It would not have been everybody's center of attention. But just seeing you awkwardly fidgeting and always looking and always apologizing for it and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe I spilled, that adds so much more tension and awkwardness to a potentially trivial situation. So whenever you find yourself in an awkward and potentially embarrassing situation, call it out, acknowledge it, say something about it, diffuse it, laugh at yourself, and it's going to be okay. One last thing as I say goodbye. This is a shorter podcast, but I hope that you take the time to really dwell on what I'm trying to teach you today, because life is not meant to always be awkward and uncomfortable. Some of you have become so satisfied in being called awkward, or you think you're a social recluse, or it's a thing now, by the way. Teenagers go around saying, I'm socially awkward, like if it's a trophy or something great. It's not. It's not. People are there for you to have relationship with, for you to know, for you to have friends. When was the last time you made a brand new friend? When? Oh, I don't have place in my life for new friends. Oh, get over yourself. You just don't want to put in the work, or you just don't want you're afraid that they're not going to like you. There are a million reasons, but guys, we all have capacity to know more people. There are over 7 billion people on this planet, and you're telling me you only need to know 2? Come on. Come on. Jesus said, go into the world and make disciples of all nations. And some disciples can be our friends. Jesus taught us that best of all when he said, no longer have I called you servants, but I have called you friends. So as adults, we should make a friend. Wait. My niece and maybe Sophia, she is 6, okay? Both of them. They could take a rock and say, doesn't this rock look like a potato? And then 5 minutes later, those two kids are the best friends in the world just because a rock looks like a potato. How do we lose that? How do we go from that to not being able to connect with anybody, or to feel like nobody is going to like us, or to feel like, and the worst is when we feel like they won't like us, we just instead say, well, we don't like them, because it puts the ball in our court. So the last thing, the last piece of advice I want to tell you about not being socially awkward is be okay with laughter. Figure out how you laugh and stop trying to manufacture the right laugh. And if something is funny, by all means laugh at it. Because people who tell jokes like to be funny. And people who are socially awkward or think they are don't like to laugh at people's jokes because it may give them the impression that they're funny. Quit. Laugh if it's funny. If it's not, look confused. But do make sure that your emotions are not out to hurt people, but are out to bless people, are out to make people feel good that they had met you. And even in that, let your authentic self come through. Now you might say, Pastor, I'm nasty authentically. I'm just not a nice person. Well, there's something you can work on. It's not okay to say you're not nice and stay there. I know Jesus didn't call us to be nice, but he said, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So take a deep breath. Remember your manners. You can say, excuse me. Say, I couldn't help but overhearing. Say, are you so-and-so? Or say, I don't know where you got that sweater, but it looks fantastic on you. And be okay with those things. And when somebody pays you a compliment, by all means, say thank you. I hope these short little trivial, maybe you know all of them already, tips jerk something in your memory, or at least in your subconscious, that will help you form better relationships, communicate more effectively, be less socially awkward, and to make new friends. And remember, at the end of the day, people are just people. They're just people. If you ask a question, if you try to say, hey, who are you? And walk off on you, oh well. They're lost because you're worth knowing. Don't you ever forget that if God called you, no one can uncall you. And you don't need a pulpit. You just need a message.